so. Because I was looking at you trying to figure out who you were. What's your first name? Jeff Taylor?
He replaced Randy in the state center.
Oh, okay, from Sioux Center? Yes, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
you can see the drug dogs.
You're good.
Okay, it's just getting more complicated.
What do you,
And then enforcement is a nightmare.
here in California? I sure hope so.
No.
Check your schedule. Something? You know, you're the chick.
I'm sorry?
You know how to use it.
Yeah, a little bit. The Orbs 12?
Yeah.
Nice to meet you as well. Yep. Very good. Thank you. All right, it is 4:30. So we'd like to begin. If everybody could take their seats. As soon as Wayne is ready here. All right, I'd like to welcome all of you here. I don't think anybody's listening in on Zoom, so, oh, there are. Okay, those that are listening in by Zoom as well, welcome to our meeting. I'd like to begin as we do by standing for a moment of silence and then follow that with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, if we could have a roll call, please.
Brad Hint. Here. Ken Snyder. Here. Pete Hamill.
Here.
Wayne Barahona.
Here.
Tom Eggers.
All right. Moving on to our approval of the agenda.
Make the motion to approve.
Support. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Hamill.
Aye.
Barahona.
Aye.
Hint.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
All right, now we move into the portion we've all been waiting for. We have with us Officer Eric Monarchy, along with the latest addition to the police force, Balin Tartaris. Is that how you say the full name? Balin Tartaris Nefarious. He just goes by Balin. Eric, we'll let you put him through his paces or whatever you've got planned here. If you want to say a few words about how the training has gone. Eric has been at work training up in Minnesota for 14 weeks now. And it was an intensive training, as I understand. And Eric, thank you for taking that time to be away from your family. I know that was a long haul, but we're looking for to pay that pays off in benefits as we work with this dog now, and he becomes a part of the force.
Yeah, the training went really well.
If you could stand by the mic, please, so we can get you on tape.
Yeah, the training went really well. He's a really good dog. I got a lot of good experience at the training, and now that I'm back, we have a good training group in Northwest Iowa to help continue to train him. So everything's going well so far, and hopefully it continues, and hopefully he's a nice addition for our department and our city.
I understand he's been on the job a week now. Is that true? Starting his first. Anything exciting happened in that first week?
He's looked for some drugs so far, and we've done a bunch of training now that we're back, and he's been doing really well with that. So yeah,
And
he's doing good.
I understand he lives at home with you. You're with him all the time.
Yep, he just stays in my house with us.
Good. So
Do you ever think you'd be a canine officer?
It's kind of always my goal, but
Awesome.
I didn't think it would happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we brought his badge along. We were going to stick that on him, but he's number 29. All the Sheldon cars are 20 officers, like I'm 24. So
okay.
he's number 29 for K9.
Any other questions for Eric?
Nope, I just, on behalf of the council and the citizens of Sheldon, thank you, Eric, for your time and your family for their dedication the last 14 weeks. I know that's been tough, and I've seen some black and blue marks on you. And I think you've been beat up a few times over that, so we appreciate it, and we thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, you bet.
Very good.
Yeah, he was looking you over.
Okay, we now move into that portion of the meeting, our public forum. Is there anyone here that wishes to address the council at this time? Anyone listening in by Zoom that would like to speak to the council? Would you please?
Mayor, I'd just like to take a moment to thank Senator Jeff Taylor for joining us today. He came to watch Ballin's oath of office, and I also want to say thank you to him for his support for our COPS grant application. I have his letter along with 6 or 7 other letters linked to the FYI section of this agenda, so thank you for joining us today.
Yes, Jeff, good to have you here. Nice to meet you this morning, just before the meeting as well. So if there are no public comments, then I'm not going to read the guidelines for it, and we'll move on then to the consent agenda.
Move that we accept the consent agenda. Support.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Snyder?
Aye.
Farahona?
Aye.
Hamel?
Aye.
Kent?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on then to item 7A, regarding the Trilogy lot sale. We have a discussion on that. Sam, is there anything you'd like to start us out with?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So, it seems like a lot of attachments and information for one lot, but this is something that hasn't been discussed in quite some time, so we thought we'd bring it to your attention. So this is the last lot owned by the city. There's a couple other lots that are owned by others that are for sale, but this is the last lot owned by the city in Trilogy that is for sale. The price was set in 2013 at just under $33,000. In 2017, there was an option to buy, which expired in February of 2018. There's been some interest in the lot, but not very much. So Kurt and I talked it over, and we decided it was best to dust off the listing agreements and get some more signs out there and encourage this property to be sold. There's a resolution linked to the agenda that authorizes the signing of listing agreements, and basically any offer that comes, or that any offer that we get would need to be subject to a public hearing. So there is some information in your packets and the explanation about the fact that an interested party has asked about the possibility of urban revitalization plan eligibility for future improvements of 3 or more units. The current plan was approved in April of 17 and it expires next year. So that would have to be extended if you're going to offer urban revitalization. You may decide not to after weighing the various offers that come in. If you do, there would be a cost to the city to update that plan. So with that, I'll stand for questions.
What would be the perceived advantage to doing that?
To extending the urban revitalization? Well, the long-term trade-off would be to have more development occur there rather than a single-family dwelling. You could potentially have three or more units. You already have urban renewal or TIF on that corner, so you would have to decide whether you want to go through the hearing process and the approximate 10 or 12 legal hours to extend and renew the urban revitalization. But there are some advantages to doing it, but you might have enough interest where you wouldn't have to. I wouldn't recommend extending it unless you have an offer that, you know, weigh it at that time.
Any other questions for Sam? Or Kurt?
Yeah, I don't know if you remember, we did extend the urban revitalization area back in 2017, which is about the same time we created the urban revitalization area out in Sheldon Crossing. So it was extended for 5 years back then. That helped facilitate some projects, you know, Seth Hellinga primarily. So, but there's only one lot left. You got to kind of figure out, you know, your advantages here, whatnot.
And you said you haven't had any offers yet
No,
to this
there's-
point?
As of this week, there is a party that saw the agenda item or heard about the discussion and has expressed some interest, but there hasn't been an offer yet.
So the interest did not spark the discussion. The discussion, you were dusting this off just because of the time frame on it?
No, I think the discussion we're having helps spark the interest.
Okay. Okay.
Is that right?
Yeah, partially. I think there's been some interest kind of in that lot too, but I think having the discussion certainly does help that. Yep, absolutely. What it does is it allows people to understand the incentive that is available on that lot under the current urban revitalization plan and area.
Is that lot big enough for a 3-unit dwelling?
But it's a corner lot, so your setbacks are on, front yard setbacks are on 2 sides, both on
Okay.
6th Street and on the street that runs adjacent to the east. So makes it a lot tighter, Greg, but that lot that sits directly to the north of it is actually owned by Seth Hellinga, and it is for sale. So if a developer wanted
Oh.
to, they could buy both lots, facilitate a large
I see.
So while the city only owns one, there's actually 2 lots for sale, and they're right next to each other.
Okay, so then it would work most likely.
Correct.
Gotcha. Anything else at this time, gentlemen?
I've come in late on this, but does the city have to eat this attorney's fee if we do that? Who pays that?
Well, that's a good question. Traditionally, it would be the city. You could also say to a potential party that, you know, look, the price that we set is a 2013 price, and if you'd like to have the urban revitalization, you know, let's split the cost, or you help pick up the cost of that. I mean, that's up to you. I think you want to wait to see what kind of offer is signed and comes in.
Okay, thanks.
So basically, if we approve the resolution, go on to approve the resolution, it's just opening it up to list it with all the realtors in town in hopes of sparking more interest.
That's correct.
That's our purpose today.
That's the purpose.
Okay. If there are no further questions, then we can move on to the resolution. If you're in agreement, someone want to make a motion that we approve that, so we can get this thing moving forward a little further?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Support. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Hamel.
Aye.
Farahona.
Aye.
Hunt.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
All right, then let's move on to the zoning ordinance, item 8 there, the public hearing for the zoning ordinance amendment regarding urban livestock. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak to that at this time? Anyone listening in by Zoom wish to address the urban livestock issue we will be discussing? We have received one letter regarding this issue. The letter is from Nathan and Lene Pedigo from 712 Washington Avenue. I'll just read it here, it's very short. Good morning, we want to show support to allow for urban livestock. Although we likely wouldn't have any livestock on our property at the moment, we do not have any issues if any neighbors choose to do so. And as I understand it, that is the only letter that the city has received. I don't know if any of you have received letters or comments? one
I
way or
have
the other.
received some comments from some people that indicated to me that we've already spent way more time on this than we probably ought to, and we're tired of hearing about it, and think it's something that is so complicated we ought to take the opportunity to do away with it before we create a nightmare. And I guess at this point, that's open for discussion. Right now, I tend to agree with them.
Before we go into that discussion, are there any other comments as far as fitting in with the public hearing? Because we need to close that, and then we'll go on to our discussion.
I've heard public comments against it also, so I'll just throw that out in the comment, public hearing.
So, all right. That being the sum of the comments portion, I'll accept a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Support. Roll call, please.
Snyder.
Aye.
Hand.
Aye.
Farahona.
Aye.
Hamel.
Aye.
All right, then let's move into the next portion of that. Item B, a resolution approving the amendment to the zoning ordinance, which affirms the form and proper process and paves the way to a first reading.
I have a question.
Yes, Pete.
What would happen if we vote that down?
Sam, I'm going to let you answer that question.
Micah?
Don't go any further this way.
If you would vote down ordinance B? No, part B. Just the resolution to approve the amendment that we've had the hearing.
If you don't approve the resolution, the ordinance does not move forward for consideration.
Okay?
So then anything else down the line would also die?
Except for D. D would still be alive because that passed first reading in May.
So we have the resolution approving the amendments to the Sheldon, Iowa zoning ordinance. How do you want to act on that?
What's our best way to eliminate it, period? No chickens, no livestock, period. What's our best action to take? And when the permits are, the ones we issued a year ago expire, it's done.
Well, the permits you issued a year ago were issued under the city code, correct? And you'll have to refresh my memory, because there has been a lot of chicken talk. What is the status of that city code provision?
It's been repealed.
Okay, so that is no longer a viable option for getting chickens or other animals in your backyard or elsewhere, that route. You currently have, under item D, what's referred to sometimes as Ordinance A. You've passed the resolution that allowed that to go forward with the readings. That ordinance is still in the pre-passage phase. It would have to pass 3 readings and then be published before it would take effect. If it does, livestock, as defined in that particular ordinance, would be permitted, subject only in, I think it is suburban residential, correct?
Arterial commercial. least
No, it changes it, in arterial commercial, it removes farm. Right now, farm is allowed in arterial commercial.
Oh, okay.
That ordinance did multiple things, or does potentially multiple things. It tightens up some aspects while allowing it in suburban residential. So that's still in process. It hasn't been passed, but it's further along than what we're calling Ordinance B.
Okay, and what areas are suburban residential?
Oh, for instance, I think you've recently dealt with suburban residential in the Nest Haven area, and across the road. Was that rezoned suburban residential, Sam? We have very few suburban residential districts. I don't know if I've named them all or not, but we simply do not have that many.
McCabe is another one on 16th
But
Street.
are they all outside the city limits?
Yes.
Okay.
The Nest Haven being the property across from that,
Old Smith's Pit,
yes.
Yeah.
in the local vernacular.
So back
I
to,
didn't catch that. I didn't catch what.
Across from the pit on the golf course, Country Club Road,
Okay,
that, they used to call it Smith's Pit years
yeah,
ago.
right, okay,
That
That's suburban
development out there.
residential.
okay.
And then the other one is on the other side of 16th Street, and the other side of Country, so it'd be
Southeast corner.
southeast corner of 16th and Country Club.
Okay, okay, good.
So to carry the discussion further, you don't have a route currently to get there under the city code. You have it potentially, if ordinance A goes all the way through, to have the suburban residential option. But if you don't act on the resolution in front of you right now, the discussion on that text amendment, that ordinance goes no further unless initiated later, either by this council or by the P and Z to start the whole process again, or potentially by some third party bringing a request.
if I might, Mayor.
Yes, please.
So Brad, if you are opposed to item 8C, then you could, if you voted against 8B, then C wouldn't even be considered, that'd be the end of it.
A couple of you have mentioned the negative comments that you have received. I have not had any outside of the council room, but we have had several in support of doing it. And were we to take a poll throughout the city, I would guess it would be an even split. I don't know. That's just my own thinking. For those that have come and made the effort to request a special permit to be able to do this, I think there was three that we have given that to, is that correct? We allowed it then. I don't think it's going to be a big issue. It doesn't seem to have been a big issue with any of them now that we're a year down the road plus. A while back, reading a hardware retailing magazine, it was speaking in there about chickens in the backyard. People having a few chickens in the backyard nationwide is on the uptick. In part because of the COVID being home, but it gives them some fresh eggs. Kids learn responsibility for having to take care of the animals, and so, in my mind, I think we should move forward with this. But I don't get to vote, but I'm going to speak my piece.
Then how do you handle the disputes, the complaints? That's just gonna keep eating up time. You know, the police department's not gonna do it. We don't want them to waste time on it. Sam's got better things to do than run down the street and look for chickens. So we're gonna make Todd do it? I mean... I've got better things to do. I know.
Everybody's
So
got- I don't-
It's just, you opened up the chicken coop and it's gonna run wild.
What about the rabbit cages? What about the dogs, the cats? I mean, people
There's a
have
whole-
pets. It's different, but it's
Yeah,
not
it's
that
different.
different. It's different, but it's not that different.
Yeah. Then I guess maybe the mayor could do the enforcement.
Sure could.
Except the chicken catcher hat. Okay.
So, I think we tend to go to the worst-case scenario when we're considering a change like this. And in reality, it becomes, I mean, the three we've had, how many complained, how many disturbances have we had as a result of the three that have it now?
I believe
I'm
we've
not
had
aware of
one.
any.
We had one.
The one,
We had one.
Yeah, it was pretty big.
yeah.
Just one.
So a third.
So
Third of
that
them.
one particular complaint, was that a legitimate complaint, that the permit holder was in violation?
That issue was regarding the one of the three that we issued. The neighbor complained that the chickens were causing her dogs to bark, and when I asked the applicant about that, she said that the dogs were barking before the chicken came. And the issue remains, to my knowledge, unresolved. It hasn't come up again, but it did come up. And that's what I address to some extent, in the explanation at the top, right underneath the agenda item, where I talk about enforcement. Some of the scenarios I laid out for you. And I believe we have a way to address it. There are potential issues anytime you have.
And I think, as with a lot of rules and laws, you're going to run into issues with people that are going to do it regardless of whether it's legal or not. Because we can say no chickens in town. I don't think it's going to change much. I think people will still have it because we don't have enforcement for it. We don't have the time, resources, nor gumption to spend the time to deal with it. So I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater here, but if we don't have a means of effectively mitigating the nuisance, I guess I don't know if there's a I don't want to punish the legal people, the people who want to go about it the right way because of the people who do it the wrong way, but it seems like it's going to remain an issue whether or not it's legal.
What are the requirements in order to get the permit to have them? Do you have a set requirement that they have to adhere to?
Well, there was a number of different criteria that were discussed. Now, at this point, we were trying to hammer down exactly what those details were, but at this point, it's you have to have a coop of such a size, and it has to be, if I remember right, approved by the zoning administrator, which would be Sam.
The Board of Adjustment.
The Board of Adjustment, yes.
That's the key, if I might. The key, Ken, is a special use permit requires a public hearing in front of the Board of Adjustment.
Okay.
So a notice would be sent out by the city to all the property owners within 200 feet. The zoning permit would be made public at the meeting and in advance. They'd have to identify where the coop is going to be, the size of the coop. We did not dictate in the ordinance how big the coop needed to be because it depends what kind of livestock you have and how many. So that's left open-ended for the Board of Adjustment to determine.
When you say livestock, you mean I could have any animal on my place? We're saying chickens, but
No.
what do you say?
Well, there are, in the ordinance, it is, the specified animals are designated.
Okay.
Just as a refresher, do we know what those are?
We do.
It includes, I'm trying to figure out what it includes. Chickens, ducks, I don't know what else.
Hang on just a second. It's under Part D. limit the keeping of animals on a non-commercial, nonprofit basis. Restrictions on this type include up to 6 small fowl, hens only, or small animals for lots up to 3/4 of an acre in size. For example, chickens, rabbits, ducks, ferrets, etc. Up to 10 small fowl or small animals allowed on lots of greater than 3/4 of an acre. No butchering on site. Animals must be confined in the rear or side yard, and cages shall have a zoning permit and meet the setbacks for the primary structure in the designated zoning jurisdiction. Cage height will be no higher than the allowable fence height. Honeybees may also be considered under this section. Generally excludes temporary grazing by sheep and goats, which may be permitted as a temporary use under section 17.5. That's already permitted in certain areas.
Right. And in addition to the restriction of numbers, there's also a permit initially that is purchased, if I understand this correctly, that's $150, and then renewed at $25 a year. Am I reading that right?
It's $150 to go to the Board of Adjustment, and then you have to pay for the permit for the accessory structure, which is $25
Annually.
Don't believe it was annual. I
So
believe there
one
was
time for the
language
structure,
at one.
annually for the creatures. Those are options, I guess we can consider after.
Yeah, that was an option.
Yeah, those are options.
The language that the Planning Commission discussed that, Mayor, and one of the items that what they ultimately settled on was that it would apply only to the applicant, that it wouldn't transfer to future property owners like you have traditionally with the Board of Adjustment action.
Okay.
When they look at that, is there a minimum? I mean, some lots are really small. You're right up, is there a minimum size that, on that?
No.
See, that would, if you're in a small lot with neighbors close,
One of the items that we put in, one of the facets of the ordinance is that, traditionally with an accessory structure like a garage or a lawnmower shed, it needs to be 5 feet from the property line. What we did with this ordinance is it said you needed to meet the primary structure setbacks, which increases the setback for all the areas except for the few houses that are in the downtown commercial zone, and in those cases, that would be an accessory structure that could be 5 feet from the property line. But the Board of Adjustment could decide we want it to be further or closer to the property line based on the testimony at the hearing.
Okay. Pete, you had a question?
As it stands, if someone applies for a permit, then people have a chance to object, and if they object, it's still up to the Board of Adjustment, correct?
It is.
So conceivably, someone could say, I want to have, fill in the blank, chickens, ducks, whatever, on my property, and a couple of neighbors that live close say, we don't want them. The Board of Adjustment could conceivably say, tough bounce, we're going to approve it, and they would be out of luck, correct?
Correct.
Their appeal would be to the district court.
I'm sorry?
Their appeal would be to the district court.
Oh, okay. So there is some avenue.
So I guess what we have to, as a council, fundamentally decide is, do we want to put the kibosh on the whole thing? Or do we want to allow the Board of Adjustment to do their thing and leave it under their auspices, period?
I don't know if the Board of Adjustment really wants to deal with chickens either.
Oh, no, no one does. This is a hot
From
potato, we
with-
just keep
from,
throwing back and
The
forth.
couple I've visited with.
Then they would have to police it as well?
No, they would just be in charge of the permitting process, granting who would get it and who would not.
Who would
Oh,
police
they-
it?
Same people that police every other code enforcement piece in town. Or same
AKA
person, excuse me.
AKA Sam,
Yes.
I see.
Say something?
Well, I was gonna say that to expand on what you just said is there could be situations where you go back to the Board of Adjustment. So if we have a complaint and it's a zoning violation, which this would be, then the respondent has the ability to appeal to the board of, they have the ability to appeal my recommendation or my decision to the Board of Adjustment. So there are three ways to get to the Board of Adjustment: the traditional setback variance, which you see all the time, a special exception, and also appeal of an enforcement action. So that could go to the Board of Adjustment.
I guess I just don't see wanting the Board of Adjustments to get always tied up in chicken debates, having meetings over chickens. Can you limit it one time a year to apply for a permit if we would move forward with it?
You have to think about that, but I believe you could.
Brad, is your question is if a permit is denied?
No, if we would move forward with the ordinance and it goes to the Board of Adjustments, could you set March every year, you have to, if you want chickens, that's the time to apply, so you don't have the Board of Adjustment meeting every 2 months or whatever it is just to deal with the chickens? Where you have just one time period where you could,
Chicken month.
yep. It's just a thought I had.
Okay, I have another question. If we would approve this resolution, are we gonna be done with it, or we gotta spend more council meetings talking about this?
Well, if you approve the resolution, what you're asking or saying you want to do is consider the ordinance. All ordinances have to be considered 3 times, unless waived by the requisite number of council persons. The purpose of the resolution is to formally make a finding that you think this text amendment is consistent with the overall objectives of the zoning ordinance. And then move it to first reading.
And then at first, we could waive second and third,
Yes.
but not at this juncture. We still have to move it to first.
That is correct.
What caused you to set the prices at what you did? You know, I'm totally against any time raising taxes and such, but would it help us if we raised the fees to eliminate?
I think if these people are gonna want them, they're gonna get them.
And I wouldn't be in favor of that. Let's deal with it.
You just want to eliminate it
At
off
this,
our table? Okay.
We need to keep moving forward here, unless there are additional comments or new information or a question hasn't been answered. I think we need to call for the question.
I'll make a motion to deny the resolution.
I'm gonna support that.
Any further discussion at this time? Roll call, please.
Hamel,
If I vote aye, is that denying the resolution?
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Snyder,
I'm in the middle of it. I'm not at the beginning of this. I'm gonna say I do not want it, I wouldn't want it in mind around my house, so I'm gonna say aye.
Kent,
Aye.
Farahona,
No.
The motion carries. So that means item C is a dead horse, and we don't have to discuss that, nor do we have to discuss D.
You do?
We do have to discuss D
Yeah.
yet. Okay, then we move on to item D. We have a zoning ordinance to tighten urban livestock rules in arterial, commercial, and suburban residential zones. We're having a second hearing? Or
No,
to move
there-
to a second hearing.
We've already had the hearing. This would be for second
Reading.
Second reading, okay, excuse me, yes,
Yep.
second reading. Got to bring that up here a minute. So yes, this would be ordinance A, to tighten the usage and enable ordinance B.
I move that we accept ordinance A to tighten usage and enable ordinance B, and then waive third hearing. Be done with it.
Is there support for that motion?
Can we clarify that?
So ordinance A, this was the original one that removed the word farm, if you remember.
Okay.
So, in the spirit of not wanting to talk about this anymore, let's just waive the third reading and be done.
Yeah, because basically, technically, Micah just removes the word farm
Yeah,
from the
okay.
ordinance.
All right.
It does more than that. It removes farm as a principal permitted use from suburban residential, meaning it tightens the livestock options in suburban residential districts. Second, it removes from arterial commercial as a principal permitted use farm. Again, making it more difficult to have livestock in that zoning district. It adds a new definition, and that's residential small livestock raising, recreational, and 4-H. That's the definition that Sam read to you a few minutes ago. But under this ordinance, that would only be a special exception use in suburban residential. Sam, have I correctly summarized that?
You have.
Okay, so it does multiple things.
So it removes farm, it defines what it could be, and that it's on the outskirts of town. If I'm
As a
mistaken.
special exception.
Okay. I'll support that.
Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Farahona,
Aye.
Hint,
Aye.
Hamel,
Aye.
Snyder,
Aye.
All right, then we move on to our reports section. Todd, first of all, an update on water conservation measures.
Yeah, not a ton has changed since last week we met. Usage is still a little higher than we'd like it. Some areas around us obviously have received some significant rainfalls. We have not. We still need to conserve more water.
How close are we to restrictions?
I would say no closer than we were. We're a mechanical failure away. That's where we're at right now. We've been able to offset the reduction of shallow well production with increased deep well production. So every time we do that, we're decreasing the water quality. We have a little bit of room left to do that. Not a ton of room, a little bit of room left to do that. Once we run out of room there, then we would be definitely on mandatory restrictions. And then when I say we're one mechanical failure away, what I mean by that is we're still at the point where well 15 would fail. Anticipated, but if it would fail, well 9 does not produce as much water as well 15.
Those are the deep ones.
Those are our two deep wells. We would be on mandatory restrictions. For the second, I would notify you. So it's tight.
Maybe that's something we should think hard at, is maybe looking at that a little harder, because water is a precious commodity. And if you have people that are watering in the middle of the day, I've been throughout town, and at noon and 1 o'clock, you have people sprinklers going. I mean, come on, people. We need to have some common sense and
That's probably one of the downfalls, I would say, of our current ordinance. And maybe we need to look at rewriting our water conservation ordinances. We go from a voluntary wash, which just says, please don't water in the day, please water at night. And then the next step says, you may not water your yard. It doesn't, so we go, it'd be nice to have some enforcement during the day, for instance. But we don't currently have that, so we jump right to you may not. If we can do that, I don't disagree with you, but the other thing we have to consider is you have revenue concerns. I shouldn't say concerns. We will lose revenue if we enforce water restrictions. So you have to at least think about it.
Well, looking at the last 7 days of data, thank the radio station for having this chart up. Yesterday, 17% above sustainable. The day before, 17%. July 4th, 6% above. July 3rd, 13% above. July 2nd, 15% above. July 1st, 17% above. June 30th, 20% above. So I would imagine we're making our money now.
Well, yes and no. You're not wrong. We're selling more water. And sustainable, understand the sustainable flow is a number that Todd and Keith came up with.
Sure.
And it's a moving target. If we lose well 15, sustainable is going to go from 1.1 to 900. If I lose well 13 in a shallow well, sustainable is going to go from 1.1 to 1,050,000. It's a moving target depending upon what happens. If we would have got the 2 inches of rain that Ashton got the other night, sustainable would have potentially went, depending upon how the shallow wells rebounded, maybe sustainable could have jumped to 1.2. But we didn't receive that rain, so I can't give you any data on what that was. I'm open. If the council thinks we need to protect and move to the next step, so I just want you to think about everything involved. Keith and I are not going to argue.
Have our pleas done anything?
Well, you got to remember the day we issued the pleas, we used 1.5 million. So we're not seeing 1.5 million days. We haven't seen a 1.4 or 1.5 since we said please reduce.
Okay.
We've seen 1.2s and 1.3s.
Okay.
And a few 1.1s and a couple just over. I don't think we haven't seen a day under a million in quite some time. So I'm certainly not going to argue with you if you want to move to the next step. We just haven't yet because I seen what it did in 2012 when we went to mandatory restrictions. People really tightened up. It took us 3 years to get back to selling as much water as we did prior to the restrictions.
So you're thinking that clamping down on it now will have an effect that will last beyond the drought?
Yes. Based upon previous data, yes.
But it would help immensely if they just wait to 8 o'clock or whatever, or not.
You get more bang for your water buck, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah, you're using it smarter.
Yeah.
You're using it. If things don't change, we're going to get there anyway. I can't, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you when. And, the highs coming up are in the 70s. That should back some usage off. Not many Junes do we get, I don't know how many days we had above 90. That's pretty rare.
Mhm.
Most
So
of
we
the time-
move to mandatory water restrictions. Who's going to enforce it? We just had that conversation about chicken. Who's going to enforce water restrictions?
Yeah, I will. because I won't have a choice. We'll make the time, we'll have to do it. When I shouldn't say I will, we will, the city staff will.
And that would be a ticket, in the form of a ticket?
I don't, I'd have to read the ordinance again. I don't believe there's a formal ticket in tier 1. I think it's, I don't know, I'd have to read. I know if we get to the tier 2, then it gets pretty nasty. I mean, it gets to a point where you allocate, Greg's house gets this much, Sam's house gets this much, Micah's house gets this much. That gets pretty difficult. And if you use over that, then there's significant fees associated with the overage.
Why not just move it to, I mean, if we're that close to mandatory water restriction, why not just do it? Put some teeth into it. Because right now it's voluntary, it's, maybe I will, maybe I won't. My grass is not looking good, I'm gonna water. It's voluntary.
Revenue considerations for the next 3 to 4 years. That's my app.
Which is then compounded when we look at the need to pay back on the new sewer plant.
Sell less water, you're likely gonna have to raise rates to make up for the losses because your expenditures are not changing. Your expenditures are changing a little bit for electricity and whatever. Many of your fixed costs are not changing. That's the reason why Keith and I haven't moved forward to the next step yet. We're like I said, we're currently able to produce what we're doing.
And I guess my opinion would be I'm gonna leave the monkey on your back, and when you decide to call it, call it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I do too.
I'm in no position to decide, you are.
If we see a spike, we'll have a choice.
This cooler weather for the next couple of days will help the situation for the short term, but yes, we're gonna have to closely monitor. And I'm in favor of, I mean, if you need to move, put more teeth in it, I'm in favor of doing it, get it done. I mean, we're not really seeing it change a whole lot, so that's really the only way we're gonna control it. And I know there's probably a downside to it, but it's less
Well,
than
it's
2
under
acres.
control right now.
But it's still, we're over above, so you just read the numbers, 17% over what we wanna be.
Yeah, and all that means is we're ultimately going to end up on mandatory. When you read those numbers over sustainable, it just means we're ultimately going to get to mandatory. I just don't know when it's going to.
Unless it rains.
Significant
A lot of rain, right.
Significant.
And there again, that's your call,
Yeah.
not mine. I mean, I'll do what you want to do.
But per the ordinance, I can issue the next step. If you guys just approve a resolution at the next meeting, you could, I guess, not approve the resolution.
Okay. You got what you need?
Okay.
For direction. All right, let's move, anything else you have, Todd? Sam, anything from you?
I do. Our regular report speaks for itself. I also attached yesterday an explanation and a preview of the town cloud proposal that will be coming at the next meeting, so that also speaks for itself, and in the interest of time, I won't get into details on that today.
All right, Kurt is preparing for our special committee meeting regarding the housing initiative study that will be taking place. There's a group of probably 15 to 20. Ken and myself will be participating as well here. That starts at 5:30, so. Scott, do you have anything else?
I just want to thank Eric for his sacrifice and his hard work, and thank the council for their support.
Very good. Angie?
Nothing.
Micah?
No, thank you.
Council to my left?
No.
To my right?
No, sir.
And I have nothing further either, so.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Snyder.
Aye.
Hamel.
Aye.
Hint.
Aye.
Farahona.
Aye.
Thank you all. We are adjourned.